Okay, we're good to go.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Karen, it's 6:46. Present are myself, Josh Howroyd, Chairman, Paul Rubin, Vice Chair, Commissioner Tim Becker, Executive Director Joe Diascoli, our Recording Secretary Karen Abradis, and our guest right now, Nathan Bonder, is here. We do anticipate we may have our financial manager, Bob Cunahan, join us, and possibly Commissioner Judy Taylor, but we're not sure on that. So we've called the meeting to order. I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules to consider new business item 8-1, the presentation from Nathan Bonder. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Tim. All in favor of suspending the rules to consider new business item 8-1, signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye, so it's 3-0. So Joe, you want to introduce the presentation, or we want to go right to Nathan?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I'm proud to introduce once again Nathan Bondar, who we've contracted a few years back in regards to the RAD proposals, and Nathan has been a blessing, assisting me, and he's done a tremendous job. So I asked Nathan, it's been a while since we've had him in front of the board, just to basically give the board an update where we stand in regards to this RAD project per se. As you know, I keep the board abreasted on a monthly basis, and figured it's good to have Nathan to present where we are and possible the different strategies that we may be looking at in regards to the conversion. So I'm very proud and pleased to introduce Nathan Bondar to you once again. So Nathan, thank you for joining us during the snowstorm. I'm hoping that you're home on the Zoom call so you could be nice and safe and not to travel back home. So thank you for being with us tonight.
My pleasure, and I appreciate the introduction. You know, it's always a pleasure working with Joe and his staff as we've maneuvered our way these rough waters especially over these past several months. You know, so I know Joe's kept you updated with what's been going on, but I definitely thought it would be a good idea, especially at this point where we see a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're just about there. And I'm hoping by the next board meeting will be even better news, to give you a little bit of a brief update on where we are with the conversion process. So basically, what we've been trying to do is, you know, HUD has been consistently upgrading, modifying, changing, whatever you want to call it, the different programs that are available to housing authorities. When we first went down this road way back when, you know, the only option that was available to the housing authority at that time was the RAD program, right? The Rental Assistance Demonstration. I'm not going to keep you here all night going through all the little nitty gritty details. The RAD program could work. The problem being is that, you know, when you want to enter into these programs, which are repositioning the housing authority and leaving the, I guess I'll call it the protection of public housing, I want to be able to sleep at night. Joe definitely wants to be able to sleep at night. We want to make sure that the housing authority is in a phenomenal position going forward that is worthwhile for housing authorities to convert. And, you know, when we first went down this journey, RAD worked. It worked okay. It worked a little bit better for Manchester because Joe and his team have been doing a phenomenal job of maintaining operations and costs and keeping them down, which is integral to get us through this journey. However, what the RAD program does, and just in a nutshell, is it basically locks in the funding that you've been getting for the next 20 years. Problem being is that the funding that you're locked in, it's typically not enough now. Why is it going to be enough for the next 20 years? So it's really, you know, housing authority could skate through, but it wasn't necessarily, something to turn down, but as things have evolved over the past year or so, things have changed drastically with the different programs that HUD has made available to the Housing Authority. And I think I had mentioned probably previous board meetings, last time we met, it's been a little while. There's a newer program out called Streamlined Voluntary Conversion, which I'm sure you've heard about. And basically, housing authorities are only eligible to participate until they have less than 250 units of public housing. Okay, problem with Manchester is you have 317 units. So some HUD programs allow you to mix and match, and we are going to be doing a little bit of that. But basically, we needed to come up with a maneuver to get the housing authority below that 250 unit threshold to be able to participate in streamlined voluntary conversion. Now, if you recall, the big advantage of streamlined voluntary conversion is that the housing authority would be eligible for fair market rents. And especially in Connecticut, where, it's an expensive area to live, as I'm sure you're all aware, fair market rents are higher, which means the higher the rents are, the more money that the housing authority will get from HUD. Not from the residents stay the same, but HUD will give you more money. So we wanted to basically be able to capitalize to be able to get these higher rents. So we were back at the drawing board, just trying to figure out how we could maneuver these programs. Now, one of the things which we've been very busy with over the past several months, and Joe's done a great job of helping us navigate this, is that the Housing Authority had taken an energy performance contract with Siemens a couple of years ago. Now, at the time, it was great. I thought every housing authority should take advantage of it. The problem being is that there are some complexities that arise with energy performance contracts and doing these repositionings. It doesn't necessarily drive, phenomenally. One of the bigger issues, though, that we had with Manchester, as opposed to maybe some other housing authorities, is that we want to be able to participate in streamlined voluntary conversion, but we need to be able to take some units through another program in order to get the housing authority below those 250 unit threshold. So in order to do that, the housing authority is still, going to have to take advantage of the RAD program. However, we want to minimize the housing authority's exposure to RAD as much as possible, because the rents are okay, but if you can do a lot better with another program, let's go for that. So there is another program called Section 18 Demo Dispo, and I'm sure I've mentioned all this to you many times. And again, I'm just going to give you the quick 2 minutes. But basically, what that is if a housing authority can prove that units are obsolete. So typically, the typical or classic example of using the Section 18 is where a housing authority is in such disrepair that it doesn't pay to fix. HUD will allow you to basically take those units offline and give you those higher fair market rents. The problem with the Section 18 program, which definitely doesn't work in Manchester because you guys take too good care of your units, is that you wouldn't qualify. I liken it, I use the analogy to totaling a car, right? If God forbid somebody gets into an accident, at a certain point, your car insurance company is going to say the damages to your car are too great. We're not going to fix it. Just go buy yourself a new one. And that's kind of what HUD does with housing authorities, which clearly is not the case in Manchester. However, HUD has made over the past couple of years several exceptions to that rule. And one of those exceptions is scattered sites. So HUD deems scattered site units to be eligible to participate in the Section 18 program, and will not have to meet that physical obsolescence, and will allow the housing authority to get those higher rents. So we were playing around with the different numbers, trying again with the ultimate goal of getting the housing authority down to 250, and we're going to use every tool at our disposal. So if we take those, I believe it was 42 units through the Section 18 program, through those scattered sites, we're still left with 28 units that we need, right? Because we're now down to 278 units that we need to be able to get the housing authority to that 250 unit threshold. So our proposal to HUD is going to be that we would like to take 28 units from the housing authority, do RAD with those units so that we can get the housing authority below the 250 unit threshold. Now, the issue arises with the energy performance contract. So as you may recall, the energy performance contract is not covered by the scattered sites but it is covered by the 278 remaining units. Now, this is coming from an attorney, so I don't know if anybody else on the line is an attorney, but attorneys tend to complicate things and make things take a long time and cost housing authorities and other individuals lots of money. Now, right now, the housing authority is under contract with Siemens, I believe Hearst and Associates had put through the agreement, and you got to pay them money and you have a contract. And if you want to whittle around the contract, it can get complex and it can get troublesome and it can cost you a lot of money and waste a lot of time. So what we have done, and we had done successfully in the past, is, and I love doing these kinds of things, is we came up with an analysis of proving to the lender that if the lender, because the housing authority has already been a couple years into this program, if the housing authority would, if the lender would allow us to slip some units out of that energy performance contract, if we could slip it out without rewriting the whole contract, because nobody wants that, then it would be no effect to the lender and it would benefit the housing authority, allowing us to slip those units out. Now, we do have the ultimate goal in mind, and HUD will probably require this, but I think it's a smart move anyway, is that going forward, when we do those 250 units of streamlined voluntary conversion, that's really where we're going to be doing, you know, the full face of what HUD would like the housing authority to do as far as renovations go and dealing with the units. So the ultimate goal is doing streamlined voluntary conversion in, say, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, once we're through the first 2 steps of the process, which I'll go back to in a second, but we want to do it without complicating things. So we came up with a whole plan, a whole solution. And I'm sure, as Joe has mentioned to you many occasions, we've had consistent, or unfortunately not as consistent as we would like, dialogue with Siemens, who really has to sign off on this. Now, in our opinion, again, we've done this before, there should be no issue, but we still need the powers that be to sign off on it. So it's really an approval from Siemens and then presenting it to HUD. So we came up with a whole plan. We put together a 3-page letter. We sent it off to Siemens. We sent it off to HUD. HUD basically said they're okay with it, but they want to see that Siemens is approving of it. So what we had done, and again, we had to do it to make it easy because we needed Siemens to cooperate, basically put together a draft letter for Siemens to sign, addressed to HUD, stating that they're okay with what we're doing. And basically what that letter states is that as long as the change isn't changing more than 10% of the overall agreement, which it isn't, you know, remember, I mean, it's a numbers thing, but 28 units, 272 units, a lot of the savings have been realized already. It should have a minimal effect on the loan, and it's not going to affect the loan payments. There should be no reason why the lender shouldn't allow us to do it. But you got to go through these bureaucrats and get everything signed off. And unfortunately, it is what it is. So we've had a lot of dialogue with Siemens. We sent them a draft letter. They did finally respond a couple days ago. You know, we'll review it, and I'm hoping and praying, you know, again, I kept it really simple, that they would sign and we can present it to HUD. So hopefully, you know, I'm hoping by the end of the week, maybe by next week, we'll get an approval from Siemens, and sure, Joe is the master persuader. Hopefully he'll get that taken care of so we can get that off the HUD, and then we should be good to go. So now I give you, you know, an overall, I know I jived a whole bunch of things, so I'm just going to recap for you for a minute, just what our plan is. Assuming, and again, I don't have any reason to believe it won't happen, but again, until we have the final approval, I can't say with 100% certainty. But basically, so what our plan is this conversion is going to be happening in 3 phases, but phase 1 and phase 2 can kind of be done simultaneously. What we plan on doing is we plan on using the RAD program to RAD 28 units, and we handpicked these units that we believed had the least effect on the energy performance contract. And also HUD requires, because we're splitting up units, 28 here, 42 there, 250 there, HUD wants to see things clearly severable. So you can't just pick a unit from this building and a unit from that building. We literally went to the buildings, we mapped it all out with Joe and team's help to figure out exactly which units we could present to HUD. So it's really going to be able to focus on buildings. It's going to be from West Hill, that those are going to be the 28 units that are going to be taken through the RAD program. So again, there should be no effect on that EPC. What we're planning on doing is a really simple RAD conversion. So the way RAD works is you have to prove to HUD that you're going to set money aside to do critical repairs right now, and they also want money in reserves going forward. But again, we don't want to expend much money and much time on that first phase. So we've simplified it as much as we can simplify it. And it's kind of just so HUD can check off all of their boxes so that they'll approve the RAD conversion, that we can show them that monetarily, if the housing authority were to only do RAD and the world would some crazy reason come to end and they only did RAD, these 28 units could stand on their own. That's what we have to prove to HUD, which shouldn't be an issue. Okay. So we're going to be doing that. And we're going to be doing that Section 18 application at the same time. So, I would say roughly, again, it's in a COVID world, so things aren't taking, it's hard to predict exactly. But I think once we get the go ahead from HUD, we have to order, there's all sorts of third parties and different things we have to check off from HUD. But I would say probably about 6 to 9 months, I think we can get through the first 2 phases. And because again, it should be fairly simple. We're just doing minimal work, minimal just to satisfy HUD. Okay. Now, once we complete that and we can kind of start working on the application process, even though an application cannot be submitted until those 60 units almost 70 units are completely offline. So until we sign the dotted contract to get those units offline, HUD will not allow us to apply for streamlined voluntary conversion. But again, I'm fairly confident that can go fairly quickly. Okay. And once we do that, then we kind of have a plan for the whole, all the federal units together with that. We plan on, so again, HUD requires the housing authority to make repairs and also to put money aside. So it's really going to be a authority-wide, transaction where we're going to go through all the units, which will probably include, the 42, and it will include the 28 that we're going to do RAD, where we're going to be setting money aside either to do repairs, and oftentimes we'll accelerate those repairs. So HUD may come, for example, and say, we want you to fix those windows in year 5. And we may say, well, why should I put money in the bank just to sit there? Let's do the windows now. And that's how most housing authorities work. And we'll work with you and the architects and what have you to just plan all of that out in a good manner. But the plan is at that point is to take out a loan. Okay, there's different ways of doing this. Some housing authorities can be self-sustainable, where there's enough money coming in through operations that you can pay off all the costs. The next level is a loan, which we borrow from. It's a HUD guaranteed loan. I find them very safe. They're 40-year loans, and I kind of like them. They work very nicely with housing authorities, and we can talk about that more down the line when we get more into that. I'll call it phase 2 or phase 3 of, when we get there. And then obviously we have tax credits, which I know you're all aware of with what's going on right now. Tax credits are great, but again, I don't like to push housing authorities. I mentioned many times, it's like I liken it to going to a surgeon, where some surgeons will tell you go for PT for 6 months and then come back. And some surgeons will say, well, I need to go on vacation, so let's have surgery tomorrow. I want to collect my fee. So we don't want to push you into the tax credits. They're good, but I believe, from our preliminary numbers, I don't think the housing authority will need any tax credits. And not only that, I think there's going to be extra money left over from the loan side, which I'll talk about in a second. But mainly the housing authority would need to borrow money. Okay, sorry, I thought it was a question. The housing authority, part of the transaction is we're going to be paying back the money that was borrowed for the EPC contract. So it's actually going to be a benefit to the housing authority. I know you borrowed money. I don't remember the exact interest rate, but it's 5-6%. Interest rates have actually come down tremendously. So you're going to save money, and it's also going to be one big loan, which is a lot easier just for purposes of operations, one check, everything together in one place. So to be able to pay that back. But in addition, I don't want to promise at this point because things can change when the architects and what have you come back. But once the housing authority leaves public housing and moves over to the Section 8 platform, there's a lot less restrictions, as I mentioned many times, to the housing authority. And what that means as well, and I know it's important to Joe and staff, and I'm sure to you all as well, is that there very well may be extra equity that we can tap from these loans to be able to use for your state portfolio. Some housing authorities, I give you as an example, and again, just food for thought, would use the money to hire a social worker, buy a van to take residents to the grocery store, bring in a doctor, a medical clinic. There's all sorts of, creative things that we've done with the extra money that the housing authority will have the ability to tap. But again, that's really, I'll call that 9 months to a year from now, where we'll start talking about tapping that money and the potential uses, and the board can make a decision. Do they want to maximize their borrowing power? Do they not? But right now, our goal is to get the housing authority below the 250 unit threshold to be able to participate in streamlined voluntary conversion so that we can be eligible for the higher rents. And then the housing authority will be, I guess, out of federal public housing. Joe will be able to sleep a little bit better at night. We're trying to do it as quick as possible to get rid of those REAC inspections. I guess that can't come quick enough. But again, it's a process, and I believe we're almost there. We're just right now, we're ready to go on our end. We just need that sign off from Siemens and then the final approval from HUD, which Joe spoke to them last week, and they seemed, pretty good with it. I guess I'm the crazy lawyer. I like to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. I wanted it in a letter in writing. HUD told Joe, oh, I don't know if you really need that. I want to feel safe. We have a signed letter from Siemens, a signed approval from HUD, so that nobody can ever come back to us and question whatever approvals they gave over the phone. So we unfortunately had to go through all these mechanisms, deal with a lot of bureaucrats, but we're just about there. One other thing that I can add, and I've mentioned to Joe, in a pre-COVID world, we probably would have had a couple resident meetings, in the meantime, just to keep the residents aware. HUD likes them. We've already done our HUD obligations, but as from a housing authority, from a board perspective, I just like to go above and beyond. It doesn't hurt to have more meetings. And I will say, so at this point, a lot of things were up in the air, and obviously COVID, getting all the residents together, maybe getting them on Zoom, a phone call, it can be a headache. But I think, once we get this approval, which I'm hoping should be forthcoming very soon, I think it would be a good idea to get the residents together for a meeting. But again, I just wanted to wait at this point. We might as well know for sure that this is, we have our approvals. Residents don't like the doubt, what's going to happen. We're not sure. So I think once we get this approval, we're going to know where we're going. It's a good idea. Keep the residents informed. We should probably have another meeting in the next month or two. I talked to Joe, maybe sometime at the beginning of January. And then maybe we'll have another meeting. But at this point, it's just a good idea to keep the residents aware of what's going on, because again, this is for them, and they should be kept abreast of what's going on. But overall, I think things are looking great. We have to go through some of what we had to go through, but we're just about there.
Thanks.
So I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. I know I gave a lot of information in about 20 minutes. So you can come to the NERC NARO and I'll present more details, but hopefully we'll be
I appreciate the presentation, Nathan, and I know at least a couple of us saw you down in Mohegan Sun a little over a year ago, and you talked about all these different alternatives, and
right.
And essentially we're taking advantage of all of them.
Exactly. We're taking the full.
Yeah. To what is HUD aware of our master plan, or are we spoon feeding things to HUD just what they need to approve?
Well, it's a good idea. They're aware of it. We did tell them, we sent them documentation, so they know. Have they been involved in the nitty gritty details? Probably not. But this will work. And I'm sure Joe knows, what we have to deal with sometimes. But this is a good plan, I believe, and I really enjoy this. It's just it brings out the creative genes. A lot of moving parts here. So,
and if I may, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chair, I believe last month in the package they sent to you that Nathan talked about, the 3-page letter that we sent to HUD. So they reviewed that. That's what I've included with the board packet last month. As Nathan stated, I've been on the phone with our new HUD rep, Tanya Whippy, and Jennifer, and they've given me the blessings. They love what we're planning on doing. But I do concur what Nathan said, using his attorney knowledge, and I'm sure with Paul, with his attorney, things we would want things in writing and signed, sealed, and delivered. So I concur with Nathan and say we'll get that letter signed from Siemens. So
it also sounds to me as if this allows us to maximize the difference in the fair market rents between the two zip codes. By keeping the RAD at West Hill, the 28 units at West Hill, because that way all our scattered site, and we have a lot of scattered site up in 06042, and as well as all of Mayfair. So that would, and there's enough of a difference between those two fair market rates to make a big difference.
It really does. Yeah, that I didn't go into all the nitty gritty of the details, and we'll give the board all the pro formas. You can review it and what have you, but that definitely went into our decision making.
Yeah.
Going
I
forward.
know Tim has a question.
Mhm.
Sure.
A couple questions. One, the underfunded pension liability, has that been kind of waived off by HUD? Is not a concern?
Okay, so phenomenal question. Okay, it's something we've actually been working on. Aside from this, I've been working with the upper echelons of HUD on a global solution. Just trying to get to the bottom of this. The way HUD is viewing this now, and again, we want everybody, to feel confident. I've spoken to Joe about it and what have you. The way HUD is viewing it is that, they're okay with it. From our sense of view and, and I guess from the board and from the Housing Authority as well, I definitely think it's something that comes into consideration and should be taken into consideration. So what we have done, and again, we can, as we polish up some of our numbers, so I'll just tell you, number one, what we've suggested has worked well with some other housing authorities is, and the way HUD is operated is we're trying to estimate and working with the accountant, talked to Boomer a little bit about it as well, is just keeping so there's 2 points. There's the estimated pension, and then there's the money that's actually being spent. So definitely, we want to keep track of the money that's being spent, no question. As far as the future pension liability, so what we've done is once the housing authority's borrowed money is, and again, it's the board's comfortability, we've like to set aside money. So meaning, so we're doing now for Housing Authority in Massachusetts that had the same problem. So I don't want to put it into a separate bank account that you can't touch in an escrow because I don't think that's a good idea. But I'll give you as an example. We're doing with this other housing authority is we're taking $1 million. We're saying, you know what, we could borrow $12 million. The housing authority really only needs $7 million. We're going to borrow $8 million. We're taking an extra $1 million. We're putting it in our account. It doesn't mean we can't touch it if we ever need to touch it, but we know that it's something that we can sleep at night knowing that we have that extra cushion just in case, the apocalyptical situation happens with the pension liabilities. But it's something HUD's aware of. It's something that, is going to be there no matter what, whether you convert or don't convert. But it's definitely something that we take great importance to.
That sounds like a common sense remedy. It
Yeah.
obviously comes down to if our contribution requirements escalates, we'll be prepared. Right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Exactly. I want to be prepared. We can't be, the way and the hardest part also, which HUD doesn't like, and I kind of disagree, is there's a lot of actuarial analysis that goes into this. And if you give the numbers to 5 different actuaries, we have that right now. We're working with another housing authority in Connecticut where they had, who was it? The state gave them an actuarial analysis to leave the pension plan and came and said, you owe us a ridiculous amount of money. And I sent it off to our actuaries who are, I believe, the tops in the field, and they went ballistic. How dare they do this? These numbers are ridiculous. So again, there needs to be a balance. We want to plan, we want to have a cushion. Again, it's an apocalyptic situation. And you also have to remember everybody's in the same boat. All the housing authorities, it's something we should be aware of, something we should be concerned about, something we should have money set aside for. But I don't believe, I guess my opinion is, it doesn't mean we should hold back, but just be aware and do the best we can to protect the housing authority.
Having a cushion that
Yeah.
that at least is a remedy that allows you to move forward. I guess.
Exactly. And we'll work with the board to just, decide how much of a cushion we want. The housing authority in Massachusetts wanted $1 million. The board may say, let's do 500,000. They want 2 million. It's gonna balance, and we'll cross that bridge. But yeah, definitely a consideration.
Okay. Just two other
Sure.
questions. One, the plan, the plan to repair.
Mhm.
I just remember the initial one was way out of whack. I think we
Yes.
even talked about it when we were at,
Yeah, we spoke about it together.
at the
yes.
conference. But
Yes.
you and Joe are confident now that the estimates are
Yeah.
within reason and fair pricing.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, we've had our team dissect it, rip it up to shreds. And not only that, we're going to have another one. And there's also going to be room to maneuver. So again, the list of repairs that we had was kind of, I'll call it, we have wants and needs. So these are things HUD will want you to do, but we can, you can do better. You can change things around. We'll have that, a little bit of that flexibility. But yeah, I'm fairly confident that we're close. But you also have to remember one big thing. You reminded me of another point. But again, more down the road, when we borrow money from HUD, when the Housing Authority is going to borrow money from HUD, so HUD's going to go based off our repair list. However, any line item that's more than probably about $15,000, HUD is going to require 3 actual quotes from a contractor. So
Well, that's good. That's a good business practice in any case.
Exactly. It's good business practice anyway, but yeah, so, it's not like we're going in blindly saying, okay, the windows are going to cost us 100,000. And the next thing we know is 300,000, or we're going to say there's 100 windows and the contractor's going to come and say there's 200 windows. So all that will be lined up.
Okay, just my last question. I was under the impression, at least for years and years, that HUD was not giving out 40-year loans anymore.
Yeah.
They were kind of like, there was a period of time where they didn't want to loan money at all, correct?
Yeah.
And that's changed now?
That's changed. The whole system's changed drastically. The only issue that we might run into, but by the time the Housing Authority is ready to borrow, I don't think it'll be an issue. Right now, HUD loans are pretty much the only game in town. So everybody is trying. The Boston is backed up like 6 months now with just applications to get through. Because everybody and anybody is trying to get these loans because banks have just frozen money and interest rates are the lowest they've ever been.
Right.
So they've been a good, mechanism together. So yeah, HUD has been pretty generous or friendly, I guess, so to speak, with these loans at this point.
Were they in the 3% range or?
Yeah, I think even less now.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, I can't predict, when we take out the loan, but everything I see, I think it will be like this, for next little while. So hopefully we'll be able to capitalize on that too.
Good. Looking forward to the next steps.
Yeah. But I will say that, and I believe that HUD's kind of looking at Manchester as kind of their poster boy for housing authorities and doing these conversions.
That would be Joe.
Yeah, it'll be Joe. Mr. December. It's creative. I think they like what we're doing. We're considering all the programs. We're bringing it to the forefront, all these different ideas. But even more so, there's a lot of pressure coming from DC. HUD is, we've mentioned this many times, public housing is going by the wayside. HUD wants housing authorities to convert, and that's why they're getting more and more generous. And we just need to make sure that we take advantage, and that's kind of what we're doing. A lot of housing authorities, I'll be honest with you, and that's why I really like working with your board, working with Joe, in that you have a little bit more of an entrepreneurial mindset. I have a housing authority that we're working with in Mass right now that's terrified of all these different programs. And even though they're in a great market, just like you are in the Northeast, they're like, I'm doing rad. I don't want to risk any of these other programs. And they're literally leaving millions of dollars on the table because they're afraid. My job is to present. I can give the options. I can tell you what I think. But at the end of the day, the board is going to make the final decision. I know what decision you guys are going to make. I know what decision Joe's going to make, and the flexibilities that all these programs offer. But it's just, something to be aware of. And I think HUD appreciates that as well, because HUD wants you out yesterday. That's why HUD's being so receptive. They're being so generous, returning Joe's call, saying, let's go, Joe. We're ready to go. So again, I want to make sure that they don't change anything, which is why I want everything in writing. But I'm very optimistic, and they're very excited about this, and I don't anticipate it, being a tremendous issue. It's just that, there is going to be a lot of documentation that has to get together to get all these applications through, but we'll work our way through it. So we'll get there.
And if I may add, Mr. Becker, same thing, like what Nathan's mentioning, I have Boomer, so Boomer looks at it. So we have our, Mike Petro, we have our auditor. So when you look at all these financials, that's one thing, as my concern is to make sure that all goes well with the Manchester Housing Authority and making these deals and so forth. So I think it works great. And then when, like Nathan has mentioned, when we go a little bit further down the road, all these numbers and things will be presented to the board, because the final decision will be the Board of Commissioners, and you'll have all this information and, with other sets of eyes like AKA Boomer, who works for the board, and, you know, our other fee accountants and auditors. So we will make sure that all this works and everything else. But, you know, I think, and Nathan will agree with me, if Boomer or the fee accountants say, hey, these numbers ain't going to work, you know, they're not going to jeopardize the housing authority. So I believe I got one of the best teams surrounding me and us and the board of where we should go in the future. So, you know, I think that's a plus too.
Yeah. That's definitely, you know, great. And, you know, and then in addition, you know, we are going to have these 25 or 30-year pro formas. So we want to make sure that the housing authority is aware and, you know, everything's out there, how the housing authority is going to be operating, at least with their federal units, for the next, you know, tremendous amounts of time. So it all has to work. It all has to make sense. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm confident it will work, but we have some housing authorities, particularly in the Midwest right now, it just doesn't work very well. And they're saying, okay, we're going to sit back and I'm going to wait another 6 months and see what HUD's going to do to bribe me to convert. But I think, you know, you guys are there. So, and, you know, I think you're in a great position, a great team. You know, everything will be run by, you know, Boomer, all the accountants, auditors, et cetera. And I think we're all going to be on the same page before you pull the trigger. And again, you know, I can't reiterate enough, and I always say this, we're moving down this line until you sign that final contract on the last day at closing, you can pull out. You're not stuck, you know, but it's putting a gun to your head. HUD may at a certain point, you know, I always repeat the line. I'm sure you guys have heard it at a convention. I'm working with an ED in New York who served in the military for a long time. And he was talking about all these programs. They call them voluntary. It's like, Nathan, when I was in the military, saying whenever anything was voluntary, you better be the first person online, because if you don't grab what you can, you're going to be left with, you know what? So, you know, that was his line about this. But, you know, I think the housing authorities set themselves up in a great position. But one thing I will add as well, which is a testament to the housing authority, which we have to work through a lot, is that, you know, it's all about the numbers at the end of the day. And the operations and the way the housing authority has been run has been done phenomenally. You know, it's really, the units have been upkept. The expenses have been kept, you know, below what I've been seeing other housing authorities in the Connecticut market and throughout the country, which is really a testament, you know, to Joe and his team. And I think, you know, that's why, you know, we believe that the housing authority is only going to thrive off these programs. They're going to get more flexibility. You're going to be able to do a lot more things. And it's really, I think, going to be a big boon to Manchester.
And I think, and just correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, because my mind's all fried per se. But as Nathan has mentioned, commissioners, you know, that extra funds that we have, we can even put that into the nonprofit and start developing other properties. So if we do, you know, like I've mentioned, working with the town, and, you know, if I do get a piece of land that, you know, for nothing, I can build, you know, one of my dreams is, even though I was never in the military, is to perhaps do some veteran housing.
Yeah.
And everything else. So with the extra revenue, we can utilize that through our nonprofit and become a developer and develop more, or even if we need to develop more elderly and disabled units, we can do that also. So
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we can do in the future with this program if we do it.
Right. And things you can't do right now. And just to even add on to what Joe is saying, there's actually been a very big push recently for veteran housing. So HUD actually, I don't know if you saw the press release that came out last week, you know, working with West Haven, they just got a bunch of vouchers to cater towards veterans. It's another big push from HUD's end. So I think on both ends, there's just a lot of flexibility that the housing authority will have to develop more housing and to just do things that you can't do right now as a housing authority. So it's really, really the sky's the limit. You know, and as long as the housing authority continues to run efficiently, the housing authority becomes a business. The housing authority becomes a developer. And if you run the right way and continue operating, you're going to make more income. The more income you make, you know, you can spend more, build more, and make more money. It's like Monopoly almost. So.
Yeah, this is exciting because, you know, if you can get out of the public housing business where so much of what we do is just jumping through the hoops.
Yes.
Much of which may have made sense 30, 40 years ago, but it doesn't today, nor does it contribute to our bottom line necessarily. So having the flexibility and to maximize the revenues and allow us to put it into other areas.
Exactly.
You know,
it's
actually somewhat exciting when you mentioned that we'd have the ability to essentially we could commingle the money with our state properties too.
Yeah.
In a way, especially we've actually had good strategies with that as well. So
Yeah.
I think we're very well positioned to execute this.
You definitely are. Yeah, and,
Um,
and just to add to what you're saying, and one of the big things about these programs is that, right now the housing authority cannot tap any equity that you have in your building. It's like telling somebody who owns a house, you can't take out a line of credit, or you can buy a house, but you can't take out a mortgage. And the housing authority has valuable real estate equity that they could tap to be able to serve the needs of the affordable population in Manchester. You can't do right now. And that's what these programs create, allowing you to tap those private capital resources, which is really going to be nice.
mhm. And the same thing will hold true many years down the road too, that, should, capital needs arise over time too.
Exactly.
Paul, you have any questions or?
No, I'm just listening, trying to get a handle. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't quite get all the programs that are working in conjunction and how that works, but I think I'll be able to figure it out as we get closer and as things move forward. I didn't want to have him reinvent the wheel just for my benefit. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
Tim and I did have the benefit of seeing Nathan present. We actually went to a couple different conferences where we've seen various presentations, both from Nathan and HUD officials. I mean, I think we understand all the various components of RAD and everything else. That, this is exciting because it's kind of like the cafeteria style where you're taking, something from here and putting it on your plate, and then, go down the line, take something else.
Well,
The basic RAD,
yeah.
it gives you a 20-year guarantee, but it's not the most lucrative.
Right,
Exactly.
it's fixed. Right. Well, I mean, and that's really the only danger in locking into anything is that you don't know how things are going to change in the future. Theoretically, they could offer programs that are better and more lucrative, or they could dial things back and they could become worse. You're always taking a risk whenever you lock yourself into anything. But like what Nathan's saying, if you're going to do it because you really think that this is you better take advantage of it now kind of deal, then you got to get it in writing and you got to lock it in. But it's really a judgment. And I don't think I possess the tools to make that judgment yet. But I think, you guys certainly do. Nathan certainly does. And so, as I said, I'm willing to just, kind of keep watching how things go and asking questions as we get closer. And I'm sure things will become a lot clearer as you get closer, because there's going to be a lot of changes coming up, especially with a new federal administration. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We got a lot of changes coming.
Yeah.
And if I may, Paul, I think, anything, any questions that you or concerns that you may have, you can always feel free to reach out to myself. And I'm not going to speak on behalf of Nathan, but I'm sure Nathan will be willing to talk with you and with any concerns that you may, one thing, as you know, my thing is I want to make sure all the commissioners are well informed and everything else, because, you're my bosses, but I like you to be informed of what's going on and making the right decisions for the people that we serve in the community. So,
of course, no, I'm not. As I said, as of this time, I don't have a lot of questions. I'm
Right.
not. I'm gonna be watching and kind of seeing how things are going, as everybody else will be doing. And the fact that we until things are signed, we're not locked into anything
Right.
yet. We can make the best decision. Just like, a few of us were all gung ho for RAD about a year or so ago, and
Mhm.
that obviously changed. So I think I think this is something that sounds like it's great. It's a smorgasbord, or whatever you want to call it, of options that we're taking advantage of. And it sounds good, as I said, until something better comes along. But if we're pretty comfortable that this is as good as it's going to get, then maybe it is something to lock in. And I'm going to keep my mind open to that.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would just add that, one important point is with what we've locked in at RAD was a higher reimbursement rate than we would have otherwise get, because based on where we were 2 years ago or a year ago. So, it's better than it would have been if it was like a rolling 5-year average. So that's number one. But essentially HUD has changed the dynamics since we started this process.
Mhm.
And that's where like the streamlined voluntary conversion and the demo dispo is always, that's been around for a long, long time. But,
Yes.
like Nathan was saying, that really wouldn't typically apply to us, although the scattered sites give us the opportunity to do that because HUD has been promoting some degree of flexibility. So it's really trying to take advantage of what they're putting on the table. And the key thing for us is the ability to maximize those fair market rents because we approve those every year because they're based on the what the market will bear here. And, we see that and it's a significant amount of money that we could be locking ourselves into.
Right.
Far more than we would get reimbursed in your traditional public housing.
I think Tim's got a question.
Tim,
I recall, tell me if I'm wrong, that this program kind of originated under the Obama administration.
Yeah.
And I think HUD has kind of had their foot on the gas and basically the philosophy, I don't think it's going to matter who the executive is. They want to get out of micromanaging housing and just send the money, basically. It seems like that's the philosophy they're moving towards. And,
Exactly.
is that correct?
It's completely correct. And not only that, the reason why these programs came about in the first place is because HUD said, we have all these housing authorities, they have aging property, and we don't have the money to give them. So why don't you go borrow from a bank or go get a tax credit, keep us out of it. And it's only getting worse and worse. And as the years go by, the properties are deteriorating. I don't know if you've all seen the report from the New York Daily News this morning, but every year the Attorney General of New York, I believe, puts out a list of the worst landlords in New York. You know who was number one? New York City Housing Authority.
Oh, that's sad.
Which does not look good for housing authorities. And, okay, I'm not going to talk about what goes on over there, but in addition, I mean, they are put in a bad position where, things break. You have old units and they don't have the money to repair it and HUD can't give it. And to be honest, especially now in the way I see things going, could I be wrong? I could be, but especially now with all these, COVID related, funds that are going out there, there's gonna be less and less funds for everything else. It needs to come from somewhere, and unfortunately public housing has always been the one, or HUD in general and public housing especially, has been hit hard. I mean, right now, and that's why housing authorities are trying to weigh, when do I jump in? I mean, the current budget that's been proposed, and I don't know what's going to happen with new administration, was to cut HUD's budget by 40%, 40.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Is it going to happen? Probably not to that extent, but they're going to be looking at making cuts. And what we're seeing is that, when they're sitting down and making these budgets, they're saying, well, why are we still funding these things? They should have converted. Why are we giving them money? And at a certain point, they're going to be cutting down drastically from what they're giving housing authorities, which is a big thing. And number two, a lot of housing authorities are converting. So you have less housing authorities who are fighting for you now because they said, well, we don't have public housing units anymore. Why should we fight for public housing? Let's turn our attention to something else. So it's really, could there be a better program? It's possible. There's a lot of talk on the table. I don't know what's going to happen. I think the race in Georgia is going to make a little bit of a difference. I don't know how much change is going to be. The way it looks is that we're going to have a Republican Senate, Democratic president, so typically in these types of situations, I don't think they're going to be tremendously drastic changes, but I do know that this is going to be a priority of the administration to somehow, work on their public housing issues. So it's out there.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much, Nathan.
My pleasure.
Hopefully you don't get buried too bad.
Hope not. So, I'm available. I think you should all have my contact information. If anybody has anything specific. We're hopeful we'll hear back from Siemens soon and we can start the ball rolling. So I'm hoping by next board meeting, if not the one after, we should have a good plan. I want to sit down. We have all our numbers. We want to, once we have the approval, we're going to go back to all our spreadsheets, fine tune them a little bit. I'm hoping to sit down with Boomer, go through some numbers, what have you. So either by the next boarding meeting or the one after, we're ready to, get this thing rolling.
Yeah.
Um,
I also do think it's a good suggestion to perhaps have one more tenant meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we finalize.
yeah, I think it's a
Anything?
great idea. Yeah.
I mean,
So I think-
I don't know in this environment, in-person meetings, if that's gonna work, but
Yeah.
the ability to do Zoom with our tenants may be limited, but
Yeah.
maybe a phone in, I don't know what you
Yeah,
think, Joe.
I'll figure, you know me, I always come up with some crazy ideas. I'll figure out something.
Yeah.
For that. But like how Nathan said, and as you know, Mr. Chair, I think once we get this information, because at previous meetings, the individuals, our residents, they're always just, asking the questions, and me, I like to give them the truth and the correct answers. And at least this time, if we have the facts, at least now I can give out the facts, say, this is where we're going, A, B, and C, instead of just kind of lead them on, say, well, I'll get back to it at a following meeting and everything else. But
Yeah,
I'll figure something out.
Yeah, the only complexity perhaps for the tenants will be the 28 units left behind at West Hill, trying to explain to them, why we're doing this, but, from a tenant perspective, it's not gonna make any difference.
It's not going to affect it's not going to affect the tenants whatsoever. They're in public housing. The calculations is still going to be the same way. Just basically, it's the way how the housing authority gets funded. Tenants pay the 30% of their income, and the rest of the money's coming from the federal government. So instead of before how we just got the operations and capital funds, and that added up, your two pots of money. Now instead of the two pots of money, you're just going to get that one pot of money, and it's the residents don't know what we do on a daily basis or on a monthly basis when we have our meetings and and agreed on these resolutions of what we need to do. So now at least we have all this pots of money in one pot instead of A, B, and HUD holding us hostage and sending in all these recommendations of what we want to do and before they okay it or not and everything else.
Yeah. Ironically, it may be those 28 units that actually get preferential treatment early on, because they're will prioritize some of the capital projects up
Exactly.
front, like Nathan was saying.
Yeah.
Right.
I assume you're probably looking at a couple of buildings at West Hill. Is that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I get you an exact map. I'll show you,
Yeah.
point out which units, but we kind of, cherry picked, the certain units that we thought, just didn't need tremendous amounts of repairs, which just made sense from our perspective. The one thing I'll add, which I guess I could have mentioned earlier, I know whoever's been to my presentations a little bit about the streamlined voluntary conversion. So I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, at least, with this next tenant meeting, maybe going forward, push it a little bit more. But if you'll recall, under streamlined voluntary conversion, the way it works is that the tenants get vouchers and they have a choice of taking it and leaving with it or project basing it. So, like we've discussed many times, I don't really see the option, as the board has mentioned, where the tenants are going to go, but we still, at the end of the day, we do need them to sign on the dotted line. So there is a little bit more, more maneuvering, I guess I like to say. It's like, for example, once we get to that stage, you may want to have a tenant meeting, but I do like having staff meeting with tenants one-on-one, where it's, we'll sit down with you. We're about to do this great program. We're going to get a lot of money to make repairs. Please give us a list of, what you want to repair. And very oftentimes the tenant will say, well, I'd love a new gas stove or whatever, a new refrigerator, things like that can go very far, but it's really the tenants just need to know that their, needs are considered. And it's going to go hand in hand, but it's another added step with streamlined voluntary conversion, which I think we can touch on at the meeting, but I think, the meeting's really focused on the RAD units for now, but I think it's a good idea to have everybody involved, at least now, so they see the progress.
Yeah, okay, appreciate that. If there's no other questions, I think we'll let Nathan go for the evening, so.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay.
Nathan. Great report.
Stay safe, and hopefully we'll have good news by the next board meeting, so.
Great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Nathan.
Good
I'm
night.
sure I'll be talking to you later this week.
I'm sure we will be. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, Nathan.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to our regular agenda. Item 2, adoption of minutes for November 19th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Moved by Tim, seconded by
Second.
Paul. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye, it's 3-0. Item 3, correspondence. Joe, you have anything?
Nothing at this point in time.
Okay. Item 4, accounts payable. We didn't get that sent
Yeah,
out, so we'll do 2 months.
That will be, or that copy will go out next month. Cheryl and I, since we have had our conversion upgrade, this past few weeks has been a crazy week in regards to the computer training, the conversion. Cheryl just wanted to make sure, because now it's being done on our new website, our new computer software. She just wanted to make sure that the APs are done correctly, or she would just want to verify that. But I can rest assured, even with Boomer here, with all the checks that has been signed thus far by Josh and myself, they've been checked by Boomer, and signed by Josh and myself. So you will get a double, you'll get another statement. So Cheryl had worked on it, and I think on Tuesday it looked pretty good. So I said we'll just send it off next month. So for your review.
Yeah, I can attest there's nothing out of the ordinary there. I noticed the checks look slightly different and the cover sheet is slightly different because it's in the new software, but.
Right. So
I just have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
Is the format of the report going to be the same, or is it going to be different?
No, the format would be the same way, but I think at the end, when I looked at it Tuesday, what's today? Today's Wednesday, Monday. I think, and Boomer may correct me, but on the last page now of the reports, it will break it down per se. So you'll see what the total grand total was for the utilities. How you have the different, checks for the utilities. Now there'll be one on the last page. It will say, utilities, electric, what the grand total was for the whole month.
We'll get a summary.
Yeah, so it's going to be a nice little summary page. So it looked very good on Monday, but we just wanted to double check to make sure because of the new software and everything else. So I believe you'll like the new format,
Yeah.
but I'll let you decide next month when you see it.
Can it be sent to us so it's not sideways? So it's.
I will do my best. Well, those why you had the 2 sheets. So, one sheet was this thing, and then the second sheet was sideways because it was all the accounts payable. So those couldn't come down. I think the new version, it's all done that way, Tim. So I will double check, and if everything looks good, possibility when I'm in the office on Friday, I can send this month that should have went out to you for your review. But like I said, we just wanted to double check to make sure that everything got transferred over correctly, and everything else.
That's fine. We'll just have 2 next month.
Correct. Right. And like I said, if on Friday, if I get it, I can send you, the one that she just ran for your review and everything else, but we can have the discussion at the January board meeting.
Okay. So we'll move on into vacancy reports. It's going to be the same issue though, that,
No, it's financial. You skipped one, Josh.
oh, I'm sorry, the financial statements.
Yeah.
Sorry, Boomer. So we'll move item 5, the executive report, financial statements for November 2020, that we do have.
So I'll start and then Boomer can intervene. So, once again, for November 2020, AMP1, we currently had a $70,000 gain. AMP2, it was showing a gain of about 131,000 and some change. thus far. The state elderly had a gain of a little bit over $30,000. The only one that we really was the COCC, in which we lost about $10,000, but that's because of the expenses, which were not booked. So November hasn't been booked yet. So basically, once we get the money from the CERT program, it will be shown a plus, and everything else. So overall, with the new system that Boomer has been, has mentioned to the board, Housing Authority is still doing very well, and everything else. So I'll let Boomer talk a little bit more, but before Boomer speaks, we did have our unaudited financials done by Mike Petro. It was submitted to HUD the other day for our fast scores and everything else. And Mike Petro gave me a thumbs up and says everything is looking tremendous. So once again, kudos to the staff. As Nathan has stated, with the spending and, the work that the maintenance department does, the work that our public housing managers does in keeping the units filled, we're looking very, very good. So I'll let Boomer fill in anything else that I missed.
Well, hi, everybody.
Hey, Boomer.
The thing Joe mentioned about the COCC, I want to just clarify that a little bit. At the beginning of each year, we're always a little bit behind on that because we're reporting all the expenses month to month, but we reimburse 1 month behind. So we have, the expenses are in there through November, but we haven't done all the reimbursements from the CERT program, the HCV program, and everything else back into it. So that's just a matter of, by the end of December, there won't be a loss there because there's enough money coming in. It's just at the beginning of the year, it shows that way. The new system has given me a few glitches to worry about, and I'm laughing because my phone's ringing on next to you there. One of the things I did with the new system is the one thing that's consistent on each of the financial statements under the assets and liabilities is the term total surplus at the end of each thing on the balance sheet. I decided to use that figure. It may look a little large in some of the programs, but it is a true indication of everything in the program, such as reserves, capital assets, capital funds included in assets, and also the amount of profit and loss during that year. So I'm going to report that number to you, and that's the number that's under the sheet I gave you under total surplus. It includes a lot of the assets, so that makes I should say not. I'm trying to think of the exact way to say it. It includes, without going back to the statements, it includes. There are larger figures because of the larger projects and the buildings and everything and the land involved. That's part of what the thing is. But that's I talked to Mike Petro about it also. He thought it was a good way to report it as well. So it's not showing you anything that's misleading. It's an actual figure that's on the actual balance sheet. So I'm putting it in that way. Other than that, everything looks good. Obviously, 2 months into the year and stuff like that, it's very limited at this point. We're just starting into the winter for winter expenses, and we'll see where that takes us. So everything's fine, and our budgets are running along pretty well so far. So other than that, I have nothing to add. So
Questions, Tim?
Just to clarify, the column that has the total cash, total surplus, AMP1 and AMP2, you have 1.6 million and 4,455,000. Does that include like depreciated assets? That's not non-cash? What is that exactly?
I'm trying to get out the sheet now so I can tell you exactly what it is. The surplus, it actually includes retained earnings, net assets invested in capital assets, net assets unrestricted, and the income and expense clearance for your current year.
So the assets would be the value of the real estate in the building?
Kind of, basically, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, does that include minus out the depreciation or is that
Um,
just fair market value?
I'm looking at on this project to just see if that, it looks like it includes minus the depreciation.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'll double check that just so I'll
Yeah,
mention
that's-
it next month again, okay?
Yeah,
So,
that would be logical. I get it. Thank you.
again, we're looking at new statements and I'm just trying to figure out how to work with them, so.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we're gonna move on to the vacancy reports, which we
Yeah.
don't have the vacancy.
Right, but just to give you, because Steve and I were working on it today from home because of the system. So just to give you an insight, right now, we have a total of 1 unit at Mayfair Gardens that's being worked upon right now. We have a total of 7 units at West Hill Gardens. A couple of them were one of them was over 400 days. So based on this report with HUD, because of the Brad transaction that we had, Steve and I are unable to go into the REACT system. We got written approval from HUD to take these units offline. But because we can't do it anymore, HUD's got to go in there and do it themselves. And Steve and I have been, and speaking with the person from HUD, and they just have not done it. But to also, because we have that RAD transaction, these units that are now somewhat over the 21 days, now we would not be sanctioned because we received a CHAP letter. So these empty units would not affect our scores, which is a good thing per se. But out of these 7 units, 3 of them will be leased up for January 1st. One of the other units was poor Steve has been trying to he has shown the apartment to the individual, but Steve has been trying to re-reach the individual to no avail. So hopefully everything is well with this individual and everything else. So I think, and it's, as I mentioned in the past, it's very time consuming. It's not just our housing authority, but all housing authorities, especially with the individuals that are elderly. They are afraid because of COVID and everything else. So, but we're trying our best to get these individuals in there. So that's where we are right now with the vacancy report. So we think we finally got the report to work now, just like how Boomer, with financial. So I'm hoping that, next month a report will be generated for the board and everything else.
Any questions? No? Seeing none, we'll move on to the chairman's report. The only thing I wanted to note is I was deficient. I was going to draft something for Joe's review on Hillstown Road, and I have not done that. And it showed up in my my calendar alert. So I'm gonna do something. I haven't forgotten that one, Tim. To draft a letter off for Scott Shanley we talked about last month. So I bumped that over to later this week. So I'm gonna run some by Joe and then we'll share it with the other board members, a draft letter before we send it out. If that makes sense.
Just a question on another item. We looked into getting another competitive salary analysis. I think that was discussed.
Yeah,
Yeah, If I was going to say to Mr. Chairman, you skipped item C, general information. But with that question,
Oh, geez. Boy, I'm bad today.
it's okay, Mr. Chair. But just to go back to Mr. Becker, Mr. Harroy had asked me, I have consulted with Rick Lico and informed him of it. So Mr. Lico is working on a salary comparison, and he's hoping to have that ready for January. Hopefully he'll have that for, well, he will be sending it directly to Mr. Howroyd.
Right.
Once Josh gets it, he will share it.
I'll share it. Yeah,
Okay, so we might be able to take it up at the January meeting.
Correct.
yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully we could do that. Yeah. Okay, well, moving back to item C under item 5, general information versus the memo for the update for West Hill Congregate.
Well,
Very good news.
I am very pleased and happy, and hopefully everyone's seen the pictures. I am very proud to say that the project is somewhat at 99% complete. The canopy is all done. If you see, I made the pictures and all that stuff. Yesterday morning, when I took a drive up there at a little bit after 5:15 yesterday morning when I was arriving to the office, I couldn't believe how shiny the underneath the canopy is. Even at times when I looked at my camera system on my phone, like right now, the thing is so bright, and I think it, it's very protective, keeping the residents safe there. Tremendous. So right now, I'm proud to say that they made their schedules. We still have a couple of issues that I'm trying to resolve with them, but I think to resolve it, I'm going to be looking elsewhere. We still have a little chimney crack that we got some leaky waters that coming through. So I've had a couple people to take a look at it and to give me a price so I can go back to CHFA to see if I can get some money for that. And we have an issue with one of the apartments with the shower, in which with my discussions with Best Bath, who that the contractors had purchased, I had struck a deal with them in which they will resend me a new shower kit. But it will be my responsibility to have a contractor put it in, and I'm putting that burden on Northeast Builders right now. So I'm going back and forth with Northeast Builders because they've known of this problems for well over a year's time. So, but I'm looking to if I can't get them, I'm just saying thankfully that 99% of the stuff is done. We'll wrap it up. CHFA's field observer will come out. If they sign off, the final payments will be going out to Northeast Builders, and we can say thank you very much. But at least, as you know, the agony and defeat that I've been going through for the past year, with them walking off the job per se and everything else. But I think at the end of the day, I can say it looks 110% better, safe, secure, and I'm very proud of what the job has been done. I'll try to take care of all the little ends that needs to be done, but I'm very proud, and hopefully, one day when I get a vacant unit, I'll have Mr. Becker come out and take some snapshots because effective today, our new website is up, and everything else. So at least we can start showing some nice pictures for the congregate. So.
Yeah, it looks really good. If I've driven, when I've gone to sign checks, I'll just go through the circle there. And I actually drove by just the other day, and it looks tremendous with the canopy done. I haven't gone through at night, but I mean, what's really nice is that the lighting we had before the canopy was very attractive too.
Yeah,
So,
So if you definitely have a chance, drive by anytime when it's nighttime, and you see how well it's lit up. So it's good. One thing for even for the security guards at nighttime. So the place is well lit. So security, and of course, we got the cameras all over the place. So um, it's a home run per se.
well, that's good news. Okay, the second item is the Spencer Village update.
Yes, once again, so Spencer Village, project is going, all the roofs are done. Right now they are, working in building 48, building 40. We now, because we finally got one person out of, finally had left because of the execution. The gentleman that should have been, evicted prior to COVID finally is out of the unit. So we have that whole unit totally, available, in which, Pioneer Builders is starting to demo that units. And then we have 2 units in building 50 that are being demoed. I took a walk through there on Monday to see how it looked, and that, the pictures that you got. Showers are being installed. I'll tell you, these guys are working very well. We are hoping that, building 48 will be completed by the end of the year. We're hoping December 31st, those 6 units will be completed. Windows are being, well, hopefully the windows and cabinets will be delivered by Friday, or by Monday of next week, the latest. Even though that Christmas falls on a Friday, Pioneer Builders believes that, their subcontractors will be working on the weekends also. So I got to commend. I am very happy, with Pioneer Builders and the work that they've been doing, and everything else. So and one good thing is that, what's also a plus is that, they're getting all these, 200 plus windows, all the cabinets, all being delivered. If you've drove by Spencer Village, you could see all the, boxes out there, the crates, so they can, the storage bins, so they can, store all their items. So it's good that, you know they got the material on site, and they can keep on going. So Marianne, has done a tremendous job in assisting, DeMarco Properties, who are our management company there. And she's, been checking up on the residents at the hotels. Really not much concerns, but I almost had to die laughing because a couple people wanted, they while they're at the hotel, they were like, they were looking for room services. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, what? If that's their only complaint is that they don't have room service, I'm very happy with that. But you have to chuckle at things, but I think overall the residents are very happy, very pleased, seeing things are being done, and I'm happy. I just can't wait to this project. Somewhat, it needs a little bit more TLC. I will try to reach out to both DOH and CHFA, on Friday, to see if there's any wiggle room, see if there's any little extra funds, because one of the things that when I was there that I saw, that we had to take out, prior to, because of trying to, when we were going back and forth, and when CHFA had said, "Oh, Joe, we don't have the money. You need to, cut down the things." One of the things I've noticed is that the walls need to be painted, and I asked them to give me a quote of what it would cost to paint the units. Some units are in bad shape. Some units could probably just use one coat of paint. But they were telling me it could be anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 per unit. So I'm just going to go back to CHFA and DOH to see if if there's any extra money, and possibly have them do a budget revision. So at least I can try to get some painting in there, which I think it would be a plus, just to get the smell of a paint, in there. I'm hoping I can work my magic with them, and hopefully doing it could be a Merry Christmas for all of us and for the residents on that. So we'll see where we go with that. But kudos to Pioneer Builders and, Mary Ann and the staff at DeMarco. Our staff has been helping out DeMarco, letting them understand the lay of the land with their maintenance. And then, with the snow, one of the things that that I decided to take on for them was that we'll snow plow this year, because we know the lay of the land, the lay of the layout. So, and which, we'll do the snow removal, but we will be charging DeMarco for our services for that. So it's a win-win situation for us. But I'm sure once we get a few units done, or we get this one unit, if we have a good day, maybe I can have a few of the commissioners out there just to take a look
Yeah.
at what the insides look like, and everything else. So I think everyone would be pleased.
And as you noted last month, I don't think they were all done, but all the roofs are done now.
All the roofs are completed. They're all done. So that's kudos. So we shouldn't have a problem on now with the snowstorm. Hopefully there will be no leaks in any units per se. And if I just may, with that, I just need, for just an update. I sent the board an email yesterday. We had a little issue at Mayfair Gardens. We had a major water leak, and this water leak falls upon Manchester Housing. The expenses are going to come on our part. ADB was out there today. That's why today, this afternoon, God bless you. I got a lot of angry phone calls because we were hoping that the water was going to be put on by 1 o'clock. Unfortunately, the water did not get turned on until 5:30 this evening. I got people that were threatening me, saying they were going to go to Channel 8 News, that you don't care about us, and the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, I did my damage control, saying, listen, you see the people outside, they are working. Unfortunately, when the Manchester Water Department was out there at 1 o'clock to turn the water back on, unfortunately, there was another break somewhere else. And the only reason we found about this is because we received a water bill, in which I'm going to fight with the town, of almost $1,800. And because it was a water leak, and that's how we found out. Otherwise, we would never found anything out about that. So, I've already spoken with Sandy and Fran. So hopefully I can try to get somewhat resolve on that, because we had no control. We didn't know anything about this. So, but I just don't know what this cost is going to come out to. And I'm going to follow up with HAI to see if this is an insurance claim that we can go against, because I'm just afraid to see what the final cost is on this. And everything else. I just want to give you FYI in case. I know a couple of residents said they contacted the town. So just in case if anybody gets a phone call, that's why I sent an email like yesterday, letting everyone know what was going on. But I didn't think it was going to be this bad, but it ended up being real bad. But that's why when speaking with Commissioner Taylor, she's like, the water's back on. And I heard you had some phone calls. I'm like, yes. And I returned the phone calls. So just to let people know about that.
Okay, thank you. So, let's see, we did the chairman's report. We have no old business. Brings us to item 8, new business. We already had the presentation by Nathan. Brings us to item 2, the election of vice chair. Is there a nomination for vice chair, a one-year term.
I'd like to nominate Paul Rubin to continue as vice chair.
Can the chair second the nomination?
I think you can.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I will. The nomination of Paul Rubin has been made by Tim, seconded by Josh. Are there further nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Paul Rubin continuing as vice chair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I guess I'll say I too. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
you
it's
can,
gonna
yeah, you
recount.
can say, you can vote for yourself. Yes, you can.
No, you got it.
So it's 3-0. Congratulations, Paul. You're up for one more year.
All right.
Congratulations, Paul.
All right, Paul.
I think the
Paul, there'll
nonprofit.
be a little extra in your paycheck this week.
Yeah.
Ed,
Yeah, I think the presidency of the nonprofit is a lifetime appointment.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to item 3, resolution 2020-30, the 2021 board meeting dates. I see Joe did accommodate the mayor's golf tournament.
And I accommodated Tim, found my mistake on one day. Other than that, I didn't get no other comments. So I'm glad that I didn't have any Jewish holidays for
Okay,
Commissioner Rubin. So I think I got everything covered correctly.
okay, so it's typically the third Wednesday, but there are a few exceptions. We have a couple of Thursdays in there, and we did push it back into June a week later, right? Just to note some, so. Does anybody have any suggested revisions to this resolution? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve our 2021 meeting dates?
So moved.
second,
Moved by Paul, seconded by Tim. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Air votes aye. Paul, I think you were an aye. That's 3-0. Okay, resolution 2020-31, the public comment session dates.
Yeah, and I know we spoke about this last month. I figure we'd still have it, but it'll be tentatively until this COVID, or we can figure out what we can do for the tenant, having our tenant meeting once again. So I just have these dates for now until we can see when we can actively go back to it.
Yeah. Actually, just, Joe, is there, just to go back on the resolution we just approved, is
Yep.
there a way you can actually put on the bottom under the regular meetings, just the same disclaimer we have on our agenda about the executive order 7B about, you know, I think, obviously, I think we would very much like to meet in person as soon as possible, but I think for the next few months, we're gonna be continuing this way.
Right, and I think, you know, like same thing, you know, if, you know, because we do have less than 10 people, if the board does decide to go back, you know, I can always make that community room, spread us all out, you know, it's
Yeah.
a question of, you know, when you want and everything else, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, Tim,
Are you basically gonna put down that these, our regular meetings are gonna continue as Zoom meetings until further notice?
Mhm.
Something like that, like a
yeah, yeah,
disclaimer at the bottom, because this is gonna go to the town clerk, correct?
correct,
Yep.
correct,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add that, absolutely.
yeah. We don't have to vote again, I don't think, you know, just have that as a disclaimer
Mhm.
on,
Agreed.
I mean, if the positivity rates get down to where You know, they're allowing, they relax other standards. I think, actually, I think we got to the point, like maybe September, we possibly could have considered meeting again. But we'll, the next couple months, I think clearly are out, but we'll see where we go after that. And after Tim and I get vaccinated, so. Okay, so, so resolution 2020-31, public comment session dates. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Tim, seconded by
Second,
Paul. I saw his lips move.
yes,
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's 3-0.
The only thing that I'll probably say, and I'll confirm with Paul if he's available for our January meeting. We have not had, and thank you for reminding me. I thought I was gonna probably have one this month, but probably next month would be a good idea to just have a nonprofit quick meeting with the nonprofit, so we have it live, so when we do our reports annually to the IRS, that showing that we're still active.
Yeah, I think we met in the summer once. I think we had 2 or 3 meetings. in
Yeah, I
2000.
think the last one was back in May,
Okay.
March, or yeah. So, I should probably just make that as a quarterly meeting or something. At least we meet 3 or 4 times a year.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, new business item 5, the COVID-19 updated expenses.
Yeah, and same thing with Cheryl with the computer. So I think we've the numbers probably just went up just slightly. Once I get that report, I'll email it to everybody. But I just purchased some new digital thermometers that could be mounted up on the wall. So instead of caring if everybody, as soon as they walk in, the temperature will be read and it will give you a beeping sound if you're good. If you're not good, it will give you a beeping sound. So we're trying to keep all our facilities safe and everything else. I should just so I'll send that out to the board also, along with the updated accounts payable sheet that
Okay.
Cheryl has worked. But and I think just if I may add one more thing. Unfortunately, yesterday, late in the afternoon, a little bit after 3 o'clock, I was informed by an employee that they have been in contact with somebody that tested positive for COVID. So I had to shut the office down today. Tomorrow, the office will be closed. And I'm hoping to see if they get the results back. But I've had a deep cleaning of the office today, a cleaning on yesterday afternoon. So I'm hoping I can have staff back in the office on Friday. One of the things I did tell employees, because on Friday we do have our COVID testing up at the congregate. If anyone feels that that they need to have tested, they're more than welcome. A lot of our employees have gone up there to get tested. But one of the good things to let the board know, even though that unfortunately I have the office closed because I want to protect. I know I may have overreacted because I did not get a positive test from this individual, but I'd rather be safe. That's my protocol. One of the things is that because now we've upgraded all the computer systems, we did purchase laptops for everybody. And this is money that was used under the COVID money. So all the employees have their laptops. They took them home so they could at least done work today from home. Of course, with the snowstorm for tomorrow, they can work from home, answer phone calls, whatever it may be. So even though the office may be closed, business is still usual per se. So just want to let you know that's I thought I had everything controlled, but it happened. So I'm just taking the extra precautionary measures for the staff, as I think you would want me to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Want to do so. Just an FYI on that.
I suspect the office would be closed tomorrow anyway.
Yeah, so unfortunately, because everyone can work from home except for our receptionist, Nancy. So I informed her, like I told her, not to go in the office today. Tomorrow, not to go in because of the snowstorm, and I will follow up with staff tomorrow to see what if I get a response back from from our employee. I don't want to call them individuals.
Mhm.
I'm talking to many people today, so hopefully if I get hopefully if they get the results back, at least I can shoot an email or make phone calls to the employees to say yes, you can come back and into the office on Friday and everything else. So I'm planning on going in Friday anyway because I need to get things wrapped up, because I was forced by some of the people to utilize my vacation time. So I'm taking the last 2 weeks off, but I know I won't be off. My phone will be ringing. I'll be doing work. So it is what it is.
Sounds good. Okay. Items for future agenda. Anybody have anything at this time? Tim?
The chair, could we, I guess, add on to, assuming that we get the LECO report, add on an executive session for the next agenda for personnel matters,
Yes.
so we could discuss it?
Yeah.
Or the commissioners?
Yep. We can do that. Okay, anything else? Seeing none. It says an executive session is expected. I don't think it is.
It's not expected.
But keep it this way because we'll put it on for next month.
My cut and paste on things.
Yeah, well, you can cut and paste this one. You got it covered. So, okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Paul, seconded by Tim. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It is 8:23, Karen.
Boomer, you stuck around all that time just because you wanted to, just because you didn't have anything else to do.
I wanted to be there in case something came up that Joe might have a question. That's all. So,
Okay. I just want to know why you wanted to adjourn so badly.
Yeah.
It's in my nature to adjourn meetings. That's all.
Yeah.
You got
Sure, good.
two other commissioners, Boomer and myself. So yeah, we're so accustomed to say,
Yeah, we're both chairmans at other housing authorities, so we're used to it. So
Yeah. Actually, Boomer, any other year you'd be doing holiday concerts right now, wouldn't you?
yeah, that's true. I miss all of it. So
I think we all miss everything, being together. Can't wait till this thing is done so we could, have our celebrations. And I feel bad that this year we could not have a holiday party for the staff, especially after a great this year, from auditors, reports and all that stuff. I gotta say, the work that the staff at MHA does is tremendous in everything else. And hopefully, I can try to do something next year to show them the appreciations of what they've done. So it's just an unfortunate time of year and everything else. So my main goal, all of our main goal, and is to keep everyone safe during this unprecedented pandemic and everything else. And I gotta say, the residents, even the residents that we serve, they've been good throughout the year. Knock on wood. No cases have been brought to my attention. So I got to give kudos to the residents and, think of something for them also. Maybe an ice cream social or something
Yeah.
for their
6 or 8 months, Joe.
I know, but I gotta think of something, Paul, because it's hard work. I think we're all just so tired of being locked into our own homes, and I'm sure with your, the holidays of Hanukkah.
Get it. I totally get it, but we're not out of the water yet, Joe. It's gonna be a while.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. But I just see from my wife, when she goes to work and comes home, just the stress level that she comes home with, dealing with the individuals in the hospital and everything else. So,
It's rough. Yeah.
her thoughts
Yeah.
is, staying safe, and not contracting anything here. And, that's why I try to stay clear from, the employees, because, I want to make sure everybody's safe. So,
Yeah.
I hear you. I play that game in my head. What's the next sporting event I'm going to actually be able to go to live?
Right.
right.
Right now, I'm thinking sometime in August, maybe I'll get to go see some horses run at Saratoga, but
Yeah.
I don't think,
No,
I don't think it's going to be much before then, before, July or August. I don't think so.
But I'm sure you want to go up to Cooperstown and see the inductions and everybody else. So,
Yeah.
right. So it's been crazy,
Yeah.
but
Everybody
Hey,
stay,
I'm going to sign off. I'm going to sign off. Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy Hanukkah to you, Josh. I mean, Paul.
thank you. And
Hey.
everybody have a great,
Hey, Thanks,
Yeah,
Karen.
enjoy your,
Have a
Thanks,
Merry
Karen.
Christmas.
stay safe, everybody.
Hey,
All
Joe.
right.
Joe, I was just gonna know, you mentioned that you were talking to Sandy from the water department.
Yep.
I don't know if you know, her mother was a resident of ours. And
Yeah,
actually, unfortunately, she passed away in a nursing home.
let me stop the